Lions fans, we're back at the table with you on Lions Gray Mains. Free agency dust is settling, the combine is in the rear view, and the draft is approaching fast. This week, we take a full roster step back and ask the question that every Lions fan is debating. Are the 2026 Detroit Lions actually better today than the team that ended last season? Folks, no knee-jerk reactions, just the tape, the numbers, and the standard analysis you have come to expect. Forward down the field.
Busts it outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
Hand off Berry. Skirts to the left side. Breaks the tackle. And he will take it in. Touchdown.
Touchdown, Detroit Lions. That's what I'm talking about. It is caught. Touchdown, Detroit Lions. Amon-Ra St. Brown. Oh, baby, what a play that time. Aiden Hutchinson read that and blew it up. Big time stand by that.
You know, I almost got it right. It's like it's a train wreck to get that intro out, but I almost nailed it. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Lions Gray Mains. We go live every Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. Eastern, trying to break down what the heck is happening with our Detroit Lions. The fans and the gentlemen on our screen and in your earballs tonight. Ladies and gentlemen, let me introduce first. I'm going to mix it up. These guys, they don't know what's happening. They don't know what's happening in my mind. But I'm going to introduce first the Chief Intelligence Officer of Lions Blue Kool-Aid and Cornbread, my man, DBC, Dr. Brent Kreider. How are we doing tonight, man?
Cornbread and fried okra.
Oh,
how about
okra.
that, huh?
Let's go, Alabama.
Love me some fried okra. Anyway, so really, really busy week since we last chatted. Dan's going to do a quick rundown on that, but feeling really good about where the Lions sit today and look forward to digging into it.
Is that a week without shaving there, Brent, or just a half a day? Or it's looking tough, man. I like it.
Yeah, I'm almost 60 and I can't even grow a beard, so that's about it.
We're not going to expect a handlebar by next week. Is that not going to happen for you?
Is word of the day wispy, or is that what we're going to shoot for here?
Put a little milk on, have the cat clean it up for me.
Wow, outstanding. Wanda Rich, thank you for joining. I appreciate it. Right on time. Hi, guys. Beautiful faces. I appreciate that. Thank you. These two guys are beautiful. I'm just, what am I even doing on this screen? Dan Keener from the great state of Ohio. How are we doing tonight, man?
Doing good. I didn't mute my mic, so, hey, you can hear me,
right,
which is always positive.
Exactly.
Hey, it's all about being better every show, and that's a win. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing good. Yep, having a little back and forth with one of our buddies from Fox Sports, about whether the Vikings or the Lions are the team that should have been listed as, best opportunity to get back to the playoffs after missing it last year, which is kind of funny. Everybody's got their own opinions, So,
oh, you know what? They've got Kyler Murray.
Respect his, but I don't agree.
They've got Kyler Murray and JJ McCarthy now. What could be better for Minnesota Vikings fans?
Any other quarterback in the NFL would be better.
Quarterback. Let's bring back Max Brosmer. Folks, we start out every show with the rundown, which is going to, let me just tell you, we go live on Tuesday. If you're joining us live, jump into the chat. Let us know where you are, how you feel about the Detroit Lions, and where they're at. If you feel like this Lions team has improved since the season ended for us recently, and at this point, as we're heading into the draft, but as we always do, Dan puts together a great recap on Monday, which is the Monday morning rundown. And on Tuesday, we like to run it down. Sometimes there's stuff that doesn't make it in the Monday morning rundown because it crams itself into Tuesday, but we're going to break it down now. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for the rundown.
Hey, look at that. We got a new number for our shiny new running back. Isaiah Pacheco is going to be wearing number 10 here with the Lions, and that'll be helpful because then Brian Branch will know he's a friend and not a foe in case he pulls him off a pile, like he did at the end of the KC game and kind of bear hugged him, allowing another player to come up and sucker punch him in the lower nether regions. But hey, it's all on the same team now. It's all good. But no, it's nice. See, Pacheco's going to be wearing 10. Last year I think Montgomery was he was 5 for us, I believe, and he was 28. I want to say the year before that because Brian Branches had 32, and that was his prior number. And just saw today that with the Houston, I've never seen this before. Houston produced like 15 or 16 number changes, maybe because they had so many guys they signed in free agency. But Monty is going back to 32, which does suit him. I do like Monty. Hated to lose him, but Pacheco, hopefully, if he stays healthy, should be a more than adequate backfill. I mean, Gibbs is the guy. You need Gibbs on the field. Take it to the house every single time. So, outside of that, and that's kind of a number change is not normally our lead in for this, but we did have some signings this week and some re-signings. We re-signed my defensive tackle Miles Adams.
Yeah.
He spent most of the year on a practice squad, and honestly, this guy, he's a good player, but people don't remember we actually had very good depth at our defensive, like interior defensive line last year. So much so that Ray Lopez played so well. His first game he didn't play so good because I remember yelling at the screen watching him, miss a few tackles, but he really came on strong as the year went on enough that Tyleik Williams was kind of relegated to splitting carries or splitting time with DJ Reader once Lee McNeil came back. These guys were kind of 3 and 4. And Adams never had a chance to be called up to see the field because we stayed pretty healthy once we got McNeil back, and just it was very talented. I mean, that's Brad's MO. He wants a couple starters and some guys that can be spot starters and very good depth. He did it at linebacker last year. He did it at defensive tackle. This year he's doing it at O-line. I think he's kind of doing it a little bit at cornerback, after our Legion of Whom last year. So, but anyway, Miles is back, and it's good to have him back. Hopefully he stays and he plays up to his potential. We also signed Greg Dortch, formerly of Arizona. He is kind of going to be the heir apparent to Khalif. He is a very good kick returner and punt returner. He's not quite as explosive as Khalif was. He's a little bit slower than Khalif, but one thing he does do better is you're going to like him because he just goes. He's a north-south runner, know. And Raymond, for as explosive as he was, his kick returns were fine, but his punt returns, he spent a little bit too much time trying to get to the corner. He went east-west way too much. Dortch doesn't do that. He's a north-south guy. In fact, last year he averaged almost 4 yards more per punt return than Raymond did. So, I think this is from a standpoint of, we're going to lose a little bit of the explosiveness, but we're going to get consistently better returns out of Dortch than we were getting out of a 31-year-old Leaf. So I like the upgrade. And he's also, he's a decent receiver too, as like a fourth, fifth guy. He's more than adequate. He's almost the exact same size as Leaf. I think he's like a half-inch shorter, but the same weight. So I don't think you're going to see much of a change in the field for that. And lastly, we signed Damone Clark. He's kind of I'd say he's a special teams linebacker. I didn't spend a ton of time looking at him, but he's one of these guys that I think is going to fill. He will definitely help us on special teams. He can play linebacker, good quality linebacker minutes and spots. He has had injury issues, if I remember correctly. So that's going to be one of the things with him,
Oh God,
Brad loves
I was going to say, Brad, like injury issues. Oh, my antenna's up for Brad Holmes.
There's a billboard on 75 or 77, whatever it is that comes across from, Detroit Metro. That's got a picture of Brad up there with one of them ambulance chaser style billboards, right?
Oh,
I mean,
no.
That's like the selling point to get these free agents to sign, man. We will take you. Vet minimum be damned. We will bring you in. We will find a home for you.
All these guys.
We will pay you not to play.
Yes.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yes. Well, listen, the show tonight, ladies and gentlemen, and we're going to be getting into this as well. And Brent, chime in here on these guys as well. Brad is finding these guys. When I say finding, I don't know yet if these guys are true finds, but these are all 1 year. Like, we're going to take a chance on Damone Clark. We're going to take a chance on Peyton Turner. Like, all of a sudden, like, Lions fans are like, who is Peyton Turner? Well, ladies and gentlemen, these guys are guys that went in the first, second round of the NFL draft maybe 4 years ago. They just have had injuries. And so it's like, when you have to fill a position and you don't have a huge amount of money because you have to pay these guys that you spent all this money drafting these guys. Now they're in their 5th year, and you've got to pay these guys. You got to fill these positions with guys like this. And so, Brent, chime in real quickly here on these guys, whether it's Peyton Turner, whether it's Damone Clark, Greg Dortch. What's your feeling here? Is Bargain Brad right now? The Lions fans are like, man, we need the big splash signing. We need, where's Max Crosby? Where's Trey Hendrickson? Like, we want to feel great. And then all of a sudden you look at the list of these guys and you're like, who is this guy? He was hurt. He was drafted 4 years ago and hasn't done anything. Brent, what's your take on these guys?
We look, bargain basement Brad, I love it. because our depth is so much better. We haven't even talked about the position that's improved the most. Defensive back, cornerback specifically, with cornerbacks with versatility that can play safety.
Interesting.
I was looking at doing an analysis of what we lost at DB, and Dan made brief reference to it. So in fairness, we did mention it briefly, but I'd like to go into a little bit more depth, because I think that's the position where we've gained the most. Adding Christian Eisen, adding McCreary, re-signing Yassine. I think Rock Yassine is a really good football player.
Love Rock, yeah.
So look at the difference, the Legion of Whom Dan called them earlier, versus players that actually can play, and look at the price that we got them for. They're less expensive than what we paid last year for lesser players. So in terms of the plus minus, I was messing around with a war kind of thing, Moneyball, baseball. How much did we improve? And cornerback is clearly the position where we've improved the most. Now, look, Dan did a great analysis. For those of you that haven't had a chance to look at his analysis on the gain loss on the offseason, please take a look at graymains.com and read his analysis. I love to debate the fine points of what he put together, but overall, Dan has us as a net positive. I don't yet have us as a net positive at a couple positions, and I'll detail why. I think offensive line, when you lose a franchise left tackle, albeit a guy who's up there in age, and I mentioned it last week, don't be surprised if we re-sign our left tackle, Decker from last season, because there doesn't seem to be a lot of takers at the.
Whoa! You're
can
saying,
get more money.
It's Brent. So you're saying right now, Lions fans, Taylor Decker could get re-signed to the Detroit Lions after all that's happened.
There's been no talks, as Mike Terry put in the chat, no talks with Decker, but I would not be surprised if the Lions, he came back to the Lions and said, I'll sign for $5 million. I'll sign for $8 million, because we've heard nothing about him signing with anyone at this point.
Wow. So Brad said there's been no talks. And I believe Brad also said last year there was no talks with a certain center either about coming out of retirement.
And Anzalone wasn't going to get a raise, right? I mean,
he says what he has to say. I'm not going to bag on him for that, But I'm with you. I agree with you. I think the odds are 50-50 that Decker stays, decides to say, figures out what his net value is, comes to the Lions, so this is what I'm being offered. Will you match it or come close to it? I mean, hell, we're already paying him $9.4 million in cap space. We aren't asking him to return any of his, I think he lost out on $1.5 million.
Yeah.
Because we cut him before a roster bonus was due. But I'm with you, Brett. I think his best option at this point still, if this is going to be his final year, you really want to pack up and move your family and everything else or be away from them. When you could stay put, come back, you're already getting paid for your bonus for this year. And if they give you half of what you were due, 10 million or even 8 million, you're still good and it uses transition year.
Mm-hmm. And the
Swallowing
Lions
a
have
pride.
$24.5 million in cap space available right now.
Mm.
And that's counting what's been set aside for the rookie draft picks that we're gonna have towards those top 53, 51 really is the way they calculate it. But look, the net positive at cornerback, I think we're still net negative. Dan, just to quibble a little bit with your analysis, I think we're still net negative on the offensive line, but I do love your comments about Borum. I think Borum could start his frankly, PFF has him rated better than Decker was last year, as you alluded to earlier when we were prepping for the show, and so the reality being that Larry Borum is an upgrade from Skipper. He is comparable to what we had in Decker, and I think we have seen a lot of folks suggest that the Lions are going to go offensive line in the first round in a bunch of the mock drafts. So if we can get linebackers, we can pick up a couple edge players in the draft. It doesn't have to be number one pick, but there are some players in the 3rd to 6th round range that I think would provide that depth to the Wanham and Hutch to be able to develop. We still have Hassanin from last year. And so I think overall the Lions are looking at a roster that could conceivably be better than last year, and tight end as well. Dan, you hit that. So
yeah, and I know you were saying the quibble about the line. The reason I said it was a slight improvement, is I wasn't just looking at raw player transition. I'm looking at age. I was looking at cap hit. You get rid of Decker's cap hit. You bring in Borum. Clearly, Penny Sewell's moving left tackle. Unless we get a franchise left tackle at 17 or move up to grab one, Penny Sewell's moving to left tackle. Borum would start at right. They'll bring in, I personally feel they're going to go trenches with the first 2 picks unless somebody falls that you just can't pass on. Sonny Styles, Caleb Downs, who's that? Who's the cornerback from I can't remember his name, Arvel something or other, Avril. But anyway, unless somebody falls that you're not expecting, you're going trenches because they have made that the number one priority this offseason. And so to me, the Mays versus Glasgow, that is a big net positive. Bringing in Juice Scruggs, improving the interior O-line depth.
Yeah.
Frazier, I also account for players being better. Frazier and Ratledge should both be better this year. I'm expecting Mahogany to be better. He's not going to be rehabbing.
Yeah.
He's not going to be injured all year, ideally. So that's kind of where my thought was on that. Yes, Decker for Borum, it's probably a push. Glasgow and Mays is definitely a positive for Mays. We still are going to have some additional guys added there, like you said. So, and linebackers, I made just spoiler, linebackers one area I said we're slightly worse. And frankly, it's because we don't have the numbers. We went from 2 to 5, which is good, but we need someone to replace Anzalone, whether it's a young guy that's got the 5-tool skills, then can grow into it, or, you sign a guy, but, they didn't want to go get the big money guys, which are fine. But they might be able to grab one in like round 4, a guy that can develop and turn into that, a guy that they need a coverage linebacker essentially. If they want to be like baseball or, and throw out their specialty guys, then yeah, you need a coverage backer somewhere along the way, or a big safety style guy.
Dan, you're saying that Rodrigo's he's just not going to be able to just jump into that spot, and he started games.
Well, I think Barnes is going to jump into that spot. Let's be honest. Barnes would be replacing. He'll be replacing what Anzalone was doing.
I'm being
right?
I'm joking.
You're being facetious. I know.
Yes,
that.
I am.
I'm
The Lions fans are like Rodrigo. Everybody loves we all love Rodrigo. We love the story.
He's not a coverage guy though.
And so everyone's like, "Hey guys, Rodrigo started games. He's done all these things." And obviously he's been re-signed and he's a key part of this. But let's be honest.
Let's be what it is. Rodrigo is the new Steward. Steward was the new Rodrigo. So, I mean, because Rodrigo was out last year with an injury. I mean, he was at a torn up knee, right? They signed Grant Stewart to become that fourth guy or third guy in the linebacking group that could be a spot starter and was a special teams demon captain. That's what Malcolm Rodriguez was 3 years ago.
Right.
That's what Stewart provided last year, and that's what Rodriguez, hopefully stays healthy, will provide this year. And they both had their flaws. I mean, they are not great coverage guys. They're adequate starters. They could play some middle. I mean, hell, Jack Campbell could probably move over to that strong side backer position and let Rodrigo start in the middle. I mean, there is flexibility there. So that's the one thing with and Brent, you mentioned a little bit ago, with the backs, right? Brad loves positional flexibility on his roster. So guys can come in, Rock Ya-Sin, they had him practice at safety last year, even though they kept him at cornerback. But you know what? He's got a little bit of background in that. You got Rodriguez can play any of the linebacker positions. Campbell can play any of them. Even Barnes could play any of them and put his hand in the dirt if he had to. So, positional flexibility there and at that big safety spot, which Branch played as a rookie. And I think last year they wanted to kind of move him in that role a little more too, but they moved him back, but I think that's huge. It makes your team so much more flexible. You can cover anybody.
And there's no shortage of linebackers, Dan. I don't know if you had a chance to look at them this week, but I sent you a couple guys that I'm really intrigued by who can play that Anzalone type of role. They're young, very athletic. The kid, and this is in our draft show. We're going to get into this, but Jacob Rodriguez from Texas Tech and Jake Galde from Cincinnati are two of my favorites. But the Lions, if the Lions were to make a move in the second round and they don't go edge, which Brad Holmes, for whatever reason, is just adamantly opposed to going edge high in the draft from historical experience. So we could probably
Aiden
expect
Hutchinson. Number 2 overall. We can't count that. I mean, that was an edge.
No,
other
I'm
than
saying,
that guy.
Since that 5 years ago, he has been adamantly opposed to drafting another edge. So, well, and Aiden's a true defensive end, right?
He's a full, and I made that point, right? I mean, we have not had a full-time every down edge is what we have been missing. Davenport was supposed to provide that. He just never stayed healthy.
All right, guys,
and we'll see what
this was like. We have a moratorium on mentioning.
Well,
Marcus
Turner's the new Davenport, right? So
well, I think Wanham is what Davenport was supposed to be.
He's the new Turner. We're like, okay, sorry, go ahead.
So look, we know we need certain positions. If he keeps signing a bunch of experienced edge players like he's doing, then I would think that we're going to probably not pick in the first 3 rounds, which we don't have a third round pick. But I would guess that in the 4th, 5th, 6th round, you're going to see a couple developmental edge players that might get picked up by the Lions. So the question becomes, if we go offensive line or in linebacker or offensive tackle and linebacker or safety, I think the biggest needs that we have still are at safety because of the uncertainty. I wouldn't hitch my cart to Kirby and Branch this year making a big impact. So those are the 3 positions that I think the Lions have to address in the draft. Where they address them remains to be seen.
Yeah. So looking at that right now, and just stepping back to that defensive end position, there are a few guys out there. There's Bosa's still sitting out there. A couple other guys. The guy I really liked was Epinesa. He signed, I think, with somebody, Commanders, Giants, somebody, I don't know, but he's off the market. So, but people forget, they panic. They see all this money being thrown around, all these big names that get snapped up. 80% of these big names, they wash out from their team that signs them within 2 years, so they never really, the bulk of them do not pan out. But what people forget also is that this is Brad Holmes. He does this every year. the guy has had a winning record every year other than his first year in the league, right? I mean, maybe the second year we might have been 7-9. I don't remember exactly, but the last 3 years we've had a winning record. And he finds players. He finds players that are productive, that fit the system, that want to be here, that are coachable, and are Lions type players. What people are forgetting is that there is a whole nother wave of free agency coming at the end of training camp. All these veterans are going to be cut
Yeah.
and they're going to be made available. And that's when you go in and you restock your cupboard at positions that don't require, like quarterback or, maybe, I don't know, maybe safety. You don't, positions that require someone to be around all of training camp to get up to speed. You're going to find a lot of good players that you
Veteran
can churn
players.
the bottom of your roster with
Yeah.
at the end of training camp. Edge is definitely one. It's literally plug and play. I mean,
Do you feel like
you teach them
safety
your
is
line calls.
safety as
Well,
well?
Well, safety, you got to. It depends. The safety is a quarterback in the backfield. The defensive backs and sometimes the whole defense. So
Yeah.
linebacker and safety, those two positions. If you know what you're supposed to be doing, that's a little different, right? But there's
Yep.
specialty safeties. You've got a free safety. You've got a strong safety. You've got a bullet style safety that is a bigger dude that can cover tight ends but run like the wind. So
Tackles well, right?
tackles well. I mean that's the key. That's the other thing.
Yep.
If you look at these guys that Brad's bringing in, some of them have injury history. But hey, look at the kid from Miami that went to the Eagles last year, Phillips, Jalen Phillips, right? Edge. That dude, he played less games than Davenport over the last 4 years, and that guy played every flipping game last year. He finally got healthy and stayed healthy. So, and he got a huge payday, and he'll probably
Dude,
be riding the bench this year.
I think he's
injured,
stealing
but
money. He's stealing money.
he could be stealing money, but you know what? He stayed healthy, so you just never know. If you get him for the right price, it
Yeah.
doesn't matter, because you know what? There's always some dude off the street. Because if a guy is hurt and he has high potential, but he doesn't play, just bringing any stiff off the street is an
Yeah.
improvement because your best ability is.
Availability.
Thank
Availability.
you.
Gentlemen, so let's get into the meat of the show tonight, because this is
We're
man,
not there.
for Lions fans right
we
now,
were.
everyone's feeling like they start looking at the names that are going here and the teams that are spending for players, and right now everyone feels like we had this position, we let this person go, now we're bringing in 2 or 3 guys. I don't even know who they are. And so I'm going to throw it out to you guys right now. Brent and Dan, let's start with you, Brent. Let's cut right to it. When you look at the roster today versus the one that walked off the field at the end of last season, what's the first position group? The very first position group that jumps out to you as genuinely, measurably improved. And I don't mean just on paper. I mean in a way that you feel like the Lions team in 2026 actually translates to wins.
So we talked a little bit about this earlier. Here's the reality. There's 2 ways to have a good pass defense. One is that you got a great pass rush, and teams invest very heavily in that front 4 and the ability to put pressure on a quarterback. The other way to have a great pass defense is a solid and deep secondary. Health always matters, of course, in both of those equations, but I think the Lions are measurably better at cornerback than they were last year. And that does not mean that our pass defense is going to be better yet, because I think there are some things that need to happen in order to address edge and safety. But I have all the confidence in the world that the cornerback position is better than it was last year.
And it's not just the guys we signed. It's Whitehead got experience last year. Rock Yassin came in and showed that he can play with the big boys as a crafty veteran and was very, I wrote that up in my article that it's like the experience we learned from these guys being forced to play helped us identify the go forward for this team, right?
Yep.
It's your point. And we don't even know what we're getting with Rakestraw. Rakestraw, before his hamstrings gave him trouble at Missouri, that dude was a hell of a cornerback. and his shoulder is now repaired. Arnold's shoulder is repaired, and whether his reputation is going to be repaired or not, we don't know. We'll see how that goes, but we've heard nothing on it, so to me, that's a good thing. But between those two, DJ Reed, McCreary, um, Whitehead,
Terry on.
well, yeah, Terry Arnold. I just said that. It
Yep.
was
Nick Whiteside, Rock Yassin, Khalil
Whiteside,
Dorsey.
Rock Yassin, yeah, and Khalil Dorsey, right? I mean, right now, this is the roster is filled with guys that you could start the season with and be comfortable with if they're all healthy. And you're going to supplant that and add a couple of dudes in the draft and UDFAs, and they might grab one more free agent vet to bring in to compete. I'm very comfortable with that position. I would 100% agree with that. Last year we had a good team with it was a good group with Amik as well. But Amik, got a little bit exposed, and it wasn't his fault. They asked him to do things he was not long-term capable of doing. I mean, you can't show up every game and play a different position in a defensive backfield. This isn't, high school football or whatever. He gave it everything, and he eventually got exposed, and it's not his fault. But I think McCreary is a better overall nickel than what Robertson was. And you have four guys that can start on the outside, and Rock Yassin can play any of those positions. So 100% agreed. Now,
Yeah, and look, remember last year, Dan and Chris, we going into the season, people were really worried about the depth beyond our starters. I am not worried about the depth beyond our starters this year. I think that you can roll people out there. There's, as you said, the flexibility to put them in different positions if you choose to, not
yeah.
having to do it. I think that's, those are the keys.
All right,
I've got a bit of a different take on this, Chris, for my choice, though, when you get to me
here. I'm sorry. What do you
measurably better is the question.
Yeah.
Dan never answered.
You didn't give me. When it's my turn to tell who I feel.
It is now your turn, Dan. Go ahead. You have my permission. Go ahead.
Yes. Did you hear that, Brent? He gave me permission yesterday.
Yes.
He was dictating.
We never short you on the question, Dan.
No. I just didn't know if he was going to move on without letting I agreeing with you on your choice, but I have something else. So here's where I'm at on this. I'm not on the defensive side of the ball. I'm actually on offense, and it's a single guy. And I'm taking the approach that the guys that are injured are going to come back. We haven't heard otherwise. The last we heard is they're due back. So I'm actually going to go with the tight end position with Tyler Conklin. This guy here is going to make our offense back to being what it was, because last year was very inconsistent. The run game was inconsistent. Our new offensive coordinator likes using tight ends. And, we end up losing both of those guys to injury. Wright got throat punched or something and couldn't, he had a torn trachea, and then obviously the issue with the compound fracture from the dirty hit that Laporta took to the middle of the back against the Commanders, so I think both those guys are due back. Everything I've heard is positive. They're not, there's been no backsliding that I'm aware of. But here's where Tyler Conklin comes into play. This guy is a great blocker, fantastic blocker. He is at Laporta's level blocking, right? Which is
he may be better. He may be better.
Right? Yeah. But he also can catch the ball, and he runs good routes. He understands the game. He is just a great all-around linebacker. He is better than Brock Wright, and he will supplant Brock Wright as our number 2 tight end. And when we go to 2 tight end sets, go that 12 personnel, I suspect it'll be Laporta and it'll be Conklin on the field. And where that comes into play is that our running game last year was super inconsistent. There was games where we were just like shredding teams. And then there's games where we could barely get like 2 yards a carry. Yeah. Well, it's because our tight ends were struggling to block, and the schemes were, just for whatever reason, we just couldn't handle it. The interior was a mess last year. We know that, but the tight end blocking just, was lacking when the injuries were hitting. And I think that stabilizes that tight end position, assuming we get Laporta back and Wright, although he could still be a surprise trade or cut. But I think that's going to be the biggest thing. It's going to help our offense immensely. I mean, sometimes you just have to outscore teams, but our defense was playing really well last year up at the bye. We were a top 5 defense, top 10 defense at the bye, and then injuries just hammered us. You
Yeah,
know,
that's happened the last 2 years, right?
it had different positions, but yeah,
Yep. Yep. We were
um,
top 10 defense the last 2 years early on. But let me jump in it for a second, Dan, about your tight end comment. Don't be surprised if we end up in a lot of 13.
yeah, oh,
The Rams
absolutely.
the Rams offense was what it was last year because of what our new offensive coordinator likes to do. He loves the 13. He loves being able to match up tight ends against linebackers and safeties. And so I would think, and we mentioned this last week, I think it was the Lions are going to probably draft another tight end in those mid rounds. We've got so many picks in those fifth, sixth,
Yeah,
fourth, fifth, sixth rounds, 6 selections, and we know there'll be trades. We know Brad's gonna be a wheeler
yeah,
and dealer, but the tight end position is one that I think is going to be played much more prevalently this year than last year.
yeah,
Injuries
yeah. I
prohibit us
mean,
from doing
Skipper
it
had to play
anymore.
tight end a lot last year, and I think one of the other, I don't know which other lineman was going in and playing tight end, but it'd be nice to use tight ends to play tight end because when you bring linemen in, even though we've run those trick plays, they're not expecting them to catch the ball or go out into a pass route. But if you got a guy, like a Conklin, who essentially is Dan Campbell, maybe a
Hmm.
better receiver than Campbell was, then that threat's always there, right? And we missed that last year when we lost Laporta, and then when Wright was down, those little like crossing patterns, 10, 12-yard passes to the sideline where the tight end starts on the right side and ends up on the left. That
Yeah.
was a huge part of our arsenal, and we lost that.
Yeah.
It was gone,
Yeah.
and it impacted us. It allows them to play the run more because they're not worried about chasing these tight ends across the field. So
Right.
but I fully agree with you. I think there's another tight end coming. There's 2 4s, 2 5s, 2 6s. We could see that, one of each of those get packaged to move back up to the third, or 2/5 and a fourth to go into the third to fill that gap. There's just a lot of good talent there. But yeah, I agree with you. I think we're going to see. The Rams used it, and Petzing does like to do it. He tried to do it with Cardinals. They were kind of limited with they had a lot of injuries last year too.
They had the world's best tight end probably too. But look,
Yeah.
look, Mike brings up a good point. But I'm telling you that playing 3 tight ends makes JMO and Amon-Ra even better. The way that the Rams receivers were better because of the fact that the defense has to respond to those
Well, if you got
those
3 tight ends, one of those wide
formations.
receivers is coming off the field because you can't. That's too many guys. So
No, JMO and St. Brown, and you
you got
have you have
five
no running
linemen and
backs,
a
no
quarterback.
running
Yeah,
backs.
but
Yeah,
you're
but
not
I
going to have
mean,
an empty set with 3 tight ends. That doesn't work.
yeah,
That's never. I've never seen that ever. You have to have one running back on the field because you have to think you're going to run the ball, right? So it is going to be either Jamo or St. Brown, but they're going to be running solo. They're not going to be
empty
on the
set.
field at the
I
same
mean, we
time.
run a lot of empty sets with Gibbs going in formation, and
Well, he goes out and
um,
plays wide receiver essentially,
yeah.
slot. Him and Montgomery both were out there a
How about
lot.
this? How about this? It gives you a lot of flexibility.
It might, yeah.
Guys,
I mean,
we're
we can
we're
quibble.
speculating on what Petzing is going to do in this offense, but we do know there's a lot of tight ends and there's a lot of running backs, and so when we're looking at, and I asked you guys the questions, where have we sort of improved position wise? Brent, let me start with you. Where is there a miss here? And the second part to that question, and then we'll go to Dan on this, is where in the draft can we fill that miss that we have
Is it a
currently?
miss based on where we sit,
Where we sit
or
currently,
where we may be?
postseason to this point, we lost players, we gained players, position analysis. Where are we? You guys talked about the advantage we have
Yeah.
in the cornerback room at this point. Where are we? Where do we have huge gaping holes and where in the draft can we, and maybe free agency, Dan, you talked about this. It's not over in terms of free agency yet. Where can we find those players to fill those holes? Brent.
I think that the and I wouldn't even classify him as misses, Chris. I think that the Lions, Brad Holmes as a GM is playing chess. He's not playing checkers. And
Right.
many Lions fans, I think, are very linear in how they want us to address needs. Um, and there's three ways, and really four ways if you count trades, of addressing what you would want to be able to do in terms of filling needs. One is through the draft. Two is free agency. Three is post cut down, as Dan said, and obviously trades. And so Holmes is looking at the full toolbox here, going, how can I maneuver where we are from the end of last season, and maneuver ourselves to do a couple things. One is retain as much of the core as we can. And something we didn't mention yet, but we only renegotiated Jared Goff's contract, freed up,
Yeah.
$32 million.
Right.
We have a lot of chips sitting in the bank back here that the Lions could realistically renegotiate additional contracts.
Yep.
There's tremendous power in not doing that, because the next 2 years you start to get into a situation as players age to where you have to make changes. And how do you create the flexibility in those future years is by not renegotiating that contract. So looking at it today, there's a lot of money left for the Lions to play with. 24.5 million as it sits from the Goff renegotiations. Holmes continues to improve the roster by adding these players on lower salaries than what maybe folks would have liked for the Lions to do. But I think it creates so much opportunity for Brad Holmes in the draft to not have to go with reaching for a player to a position. He's very big on taking the best available player. And as Dan said, there are clearly 13 players that have a first round grade. If any of those 13 players are available at 17, or Holmes chooses to trade up, I haven't, I have no third rounder to deal with, or to trade, but we could certainly give away next year's first round to make a trade up. But I'm all for kind of sitting and making sure that we're getting the best player available, because there's going to be safeties, linebackers, offensive linemen, and edges. This draft is very heavy in those positions.
Okay.
So I think that what Holmes is going to do is he's going to hit, and we're going to end up with two or three players at a minimum that are really ready to step in and play in their first year. And then you got a bunch of developmental guys and special teams demons, I think is the word Dan used earlier. Special teams demon, which is the third component of football, right? That many fans fail to acknowledge. Adding that depth at those positions like linebacker, like guys that can run, defensive backs, safeties. There's some safeties that I absolutely love. Big physical safeties, Kilgore, Ramsey from USC. There's a bunch of those types of players that'll be available in those third, fourth, fifth round areas that we could pick up. So folks that are worried still, I would say step back from the ledge of the cliff. Understand that we have addressed, tight end was a huge need for us. Cornerback, building that depth. We still got a couple positions. Offensive line, he's retooled it. And free agency is still a possibility. Drafting is still a possibility. So I'm absolutely 100% confident that we're in a really good place. And look, we were a 9-7 team that should have been 11-6 or 12-5. Injuries really hurt us, and by improving the depth that like he's doing, I feel so much better with the last place schedule next year, coming into it with better players, more depth than what we had last season.
Dan, what do you got, man? What any takes on that?
I'm just going to throw this out there, and again, this is assuming everyone's healthy with the exception of Branch. We know he's going to be a November, probably October, November return, but Can the Detroit Lions field a competent and competitive team with this roster as it sits right now if a game had to be tomorrow? And the answer is absolutely yes. They have filled every hole on the roster with a replacement player. Now, the one spot that is probably diminished from last year is linebacker, and that's twofold. Number one, we just don't have the numbers there yet, right? And number two, you know, Anzalone's going to be tough to replace. As much as people bagged on him, the guy did a lot. He was he rushed the passer. He was a relentless tackler. He was a very good tackler. He could cover guys downfield. I mean, some of the catches that were made on him last year, and I'm going to curse, so earmuffs for the youngsters or the elderly.
Earmuffs.
Some of the catches that were made against him were absolute bullshit last year. I mean, they were just like ridiculous. The one where he, what's his face caught it, fell down and ran the touchdown, whatever. I mean, yeah, it's almost like the Barnes one with Jameis Winston. Like he busted his ass to get over there because somebody blew the coverage, and he got the one that got panned on it because Winston, juked him and ran it in. But realistically, he wasn't even supposed to be covering that guy, but he still made it out there. But
we
regardless,
all want Alex on the team. He definitely, but he's earned a bigger paycheck.
What people don't remember about Alex Anzalone is we signed him on a 1-year deal.
Yeah.
Then we signed him to a second 1-year deal. Then we gave him a 3-year deal finally. So he spent 5 years with us, but his first 2, he was on prove-it deals.
A lot of people thought he was washed. Deal. A lot of people talked about him being washed.
He was young, right? When we signed him, he was at the end of his first contract.
When he was with New Orleans, when he was with the Giants, like a lot of people.
I thought he was terrible. I thought he was terrible in pass coverage, but he ended up a really good player. And look, he gave up maybe 5 or 6 touchdowns last year, and agreed, Dan, a few of them were, really lucky plays.
Yeah, I mean, not much you can do with them.
Even the touchdown against what's the tight end for the Ravens that caught a couple touchdown passes. Anzalone was right in his hip. It was a great throw. So look, linebacker.
Lively.
Yep.
Right. Likely.
No.
Likely. Isaiah Likely.
Isaiah, thank you.
The other guy.
Blake Lively. Her brother.
Deadpool.
Andrews, yeah, thank you, Mark Andrews.
Mark Andrews
on that out.
Wrong Baltimore tight end.
Yeah, I was like,
Legion
no,
of
the
Whom.
other
Thanks for joining us tonight. By the way, thank you for joining us tonight, Legion of Whom. Appreciate it.
Yeah, so Legion of Whom, I will debate this with you all day, man. We're playing a last place schedule. The Lions could roll it out today with Amon-Ra St. Brown's, Jahmyr Gibbs, Laporta healthy.
We're going to be fine in offense.
The Lions offense is going to put up some points, and I love Kafka as the passing game coordinator, Petzing as the offensive coordinator.
You guys didn't mention running back tonight, so I feel like a lot of people feel like we're going to fill a hole with running back in the draft. But
Maybe.
And shout out to Lions Collective, another podcast that everyone should follow and subscribe. Let's just go ahead and say that.
Justin
great,
and those guys,
fantastic. Podcast. Interviewed, had a great interview with Brad Holmes today, so go and check that out after you're done checking this one out. But I did notice when I watched and listened to the interview with Brad Holmes today with the Lions Collective, like they talked about the running back position, and it was a lot of conversation about David Montgomery, for good reason. And bring in Pacheco and the concerns that Pacheco has been down, in the last couple of years, mostly due to his injury concerns. And one of the first things Brad Holmes brought up was, hey, listen, Sione Vaki is a player that we love on this Lions team. So, like that is something that you gotta realize. Like, yes, Vaki hasn't done much as a running back, right? But they're seeing stuff that we're not seeing, right? And he's had injuries and like
he's been injured more than Pacheco.
Yes.
With little playing time, right?
And Marcus Newsom says it's either the injury bug or the refs that end up derailing all of our strong seasons. Oh my God,
Yes.
Marcus Newsom. Welcome to the family. Although when you saw today that what the NFL is doing with their new rules that they're doing, apparently the officiating is just going to get so much better because of
Well, they're
everything. And that's good.
prepping. They're prepping for basically scabs to run the officials.
Scabs.
Right,
I
What
mean, and
exactly.
I got to be honest with you, they may be better than these idiots that are out there now.
they
These
may
guys
be better.
have been awful. They
There,
they need to
there
be
are some really
full-time
good.
employees.
Yep, there are some really good college refs that would do remarkably better. But the reality is, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but folks, gambling and
Yes,
it
Well, it
has a
magnifies it.
huge effect
100%.
on sports, and I can't help but
Hmm.
think that
It's a different lens.
there's the possibility that refs are influenced by such things as gambling and look, the NBA arrested a
I
30-year
know.
referee, or excuse me, a 30-year referee was terminated, and then he was subsequently arrested and put under investigation for fixing games for years.
Yeah, I think the issue is more not necessarily that route, but it's the fact that because of gambling, it's like fantasy football. People that didn't really pay attention to the team started paying attention because of fantasy football 20 years ago, right? 25 years ago. Well, now with the proliferation of gambling, people are, when something doesn't go right because somebody makes a mistake or causes an issue, it comes up. That's the first thing that crosses their mind because of guys like that idiot from the NBA, and there's been other guys that have done that. So it's a problem. You can't embrace gambling as an advertiser and as a partner and then not have that come up. But part of the other issue, this to me is twofold, right? The rules have become incredibly complex and stupid. They're written poorly. So, way too much interpretation, number one. Number two, they don't enforce their rules to the T. I mean, people are not dumb. There's a lot of people that have watched football for a lot of years and they know what a freaking offsides is or a false start or a hold. And when you don't call that stuff consistently, or even worse, one team gets away with it and the other team doesn't, that's a problem too.
Yeah.
Right. And then the third one is that I think with instant replay, I think officials have gotten they've become more reliant on, oh well, if I miss it, it'll get corrected by the replay system. Instead of trying to think and get it right
Mm,
the first time, they're relying on the fallback option and the crutch of instant replay to help correct a mistake.
yeah.
You
Should
know,
I
I know,
make the
but
call
even
or should I make
replay.
the other call because I know it's going
Yep.
to get reviewed?
Well, even
right?
replay makes. I mean, replay. We are looking at replay. We see clear as day something happen, and the refs call it the other way.
Yeah.
There. I mean, there's so many issues with the refs
Yeah,
in the
it's too
NFL.
subjective.
It's very
So
subjective. And look, the referee. There's a notice that came out, Dan. Maybe you want to talk a little bit about it, but the bottom line is that officials upstairs in New York can overturn calls and make more
we'll
judgment
talk about
calls
that
now.
next week on the show because they're going
Yep.
to vote on it in Arizona next week. I
Yep.
think on Thursday, Friday. So we can make that a part of our show next week is to discuss
But the
these
point
rules
being,
are
right? Yeah. But the point being that there is hopefully help on the way. It happened
yeah
to us against when
every
we
game. Brandon,
when we
happens to
thought
us.
we thought we won the game, and they're like,
Which time was this?
a call from New York just came in. We're
Was
like,
this the
what?
pass
A
interference
call
that
from
got
New
picked
York.
up? Was this
It,
the catch
In
yeah.
against the Bears by
2016, week 14,
Johnson?
where we
And the
were,
ref says, no, New York didn't call in the post game. And he told the coach, New York
guys,
called, made
guys,
the
stop
Was
being
change.
this the 10-second
crybabies.
runoff?
Stop being
10-second
crybabies.
runoff when we thought
Yeah,
we had a
no,
touchdown and we
we're
didn't.
not crying about it. I'm just simply, I was just trying to make the point
I'm being
that
facetious.
hopefully there's help on the way
Yeah.
in the form of
Yes.
being able to right some wrongs that
Well,
have obviously been made by
let,
those subjective
let's
calls.
switch this back. We got off topic here. Let's go back to Vaki really quick. I posted in the chat.
Yep.
This is primarily from preseason last few years, but one thing you'll notice, Al Karsten, who, he works for Pride of Detroit. I love the dude. He is very insightful. He posts a lot of great stats, positive and he just posts facts, stats, right? He posted a 90-second clip of just Sione Vaki with the ball in his hands. And when you watch this clip, you can easily see why the Lions like him as a running back because the guy he has vision. Like he sees holes before they open up. Now we're watching him from like end zone views, so it's very easy to see these things, on camera. He's on the field. He has great vision. He has good cuts. He's nifty. He's shifty. And again, it's predicated on his health, but I can easily see why they would consider him to be a viable option as the running back 2, running back 3, just because he is very explosive with the ball. We've seen it in games,
Yeah.
garbage time. He's come
Lions
in and
better
ripped off
draft
some
a running
runs.
back. Lions better draft a
Well,
running back because Vaki and Pacheco, because of their ability to stay healthy. I'll just say that.
yeah. I mean,
Going
again,
on
we'll
record.
see how it goes. Right now they have 6 running backs on the roster,
Yeah.
so there's not a lot of room left unless they
Yeah.
start cutting some of these guys at the back end. So
yeah, we want to shout out Marcus Newsom. We appreciate you joining us in the draft. We're gonna be talking a lot about the draft here in the coming weeks. Obviously the draft's coming in 4 weeks or less, and we will be going live during the draft. We will be doing that as well. And as we approach the draft, we will be doing lots more intensive stuff. Listen, the whole reason why the 3 of us on the screen are here is because of the draft. And years and years and years ago, we won't go into the whole Lions Gray Mains thing, but back in the day, before when we were dialing in on AOL and bulletin board systems and AOL Instant Messenger and all the places that we could contact each other as Lions fans, especially during the draft. Especially the 2 men that are on either side of me, Brent and Dan. These guys are super draft nerds, and so we're going to get really into it. But Marcus Newsom, thanks for joining us. Detroit should draft offensive line at number 17. Yes, I don't disagree at this point. And 50, fill out your defense with our 7 picks in the 4th through the 7th round. Not a terrible idea, for sure. And then we are a high-end left tackle and left guard away from having the best offense in the NFC, if not the league. I want to be the best at something. So love that. I mean, I think we're all sort of in agreement at this point. It's like a tackle. If that tackle happens to be a right tackle, that means Panay is moving to left, and that right tackle is whether it's the Utah kid or whomever it is,
Proctor,
or maybe a guy that we
Fano.
have on the roster is going to play right tackle, and Panay moving to left. Listen, I think Brad's gonna take that guy, and if it happens to be an edge at 17, it's gonna be an edge at 17, and we're gonna work with the offensive line that we've got, or maybe a guy that we. I
will say this
round.
In response to Marcus's query there. I will say this: Brad has brought in Cade Mays, Juice Scruggs. He has year 2 of Miles Frazier. He has year 2 of Tate Ratledge. Year 3 of Christian Mahogany, and year 4 of Colby Sorsdal as his interior offensive lineman. And he's got Seth McLaughlin, who was the Remington Award winner,
too excited about
as a backup.
Guys. I'm not going to get too excited about Sorsdal.
Can I make my point before you shit all over him?
Of course, I'm not shitting over anybody.
My point is that competition breeds the best. And now what he has done is he has swapped out Tristan Colon, Awasike, and about 5 or 6 other Nice. I mean, he's still on the roster, but 5 or 6 other dudes that we've never heard of before. You have guys that have started games or guys that have been drafted by this organization that are now going to all be competing for those 2 interior guard spots. I mean, being honest, Mays and Ratledge are locked in. Now you got Scruggs as a backup center or guard potential, and he has started some games. You got Frazier, who we thought he was number 2 guard behind Ratledge last year. Brent did. He thought he was the 3rd overall best guard in the draft. We got him in the 5th round because of his injury. So you have assets that you've put towards these positions. Now it's time to let these guys go in and earn their role, right? And I would not be shocked. Mahogany has all the potential in the world, I think. But I think Frazier could beat him out too if he's going to sit there or become like that, Borum's a starter. Maybe he becomes the backup right guard, backup right tackle, whatever. But I think we have the best competition on this line in the interior that we've had in the last 5-6 years, easily. You know, we don't need to bring those guys. Brought in Mays, but we don't need to bring in any guards. We've thrown a lot of draft picks at guards, and the guys we've picked up in the trade. I think this is probably the best group, like overall interior offensive lineman we've had, and let the best guy play. Let him just throw him. It's like Batman. Bust the frickin' pull cue over your knee, throw it on the ground, so there's one spot open, and whoever's left gets the spot, right? Let them fight it out. So
we always
that's where
at
I'm
the end
at.
of our show. We always at the end of a show, like somebody will say something and be like, "Man, I got it. I know it's the end of our show, but I gotta go. I gotta
jump in.
I just, honestly, the best competition means there isn't a definitive great starter at that position. That's what that means to me.
I agree. I agree with you, Chris. Listen,
I agree, but I don't agree.
I wasn't going to say anything, but now I got to agree with Chris. Mahogany took a step back last year. He was not. His PFF grades are way lower than what they were.
Suffered a broken leg, man. What do you want from him?
I'm with you, but again, Chris's point. You can not guarantee me that he's going to be back to form or better than he was.
So you got Juice Scruggs. So you got Miles Frazier.
Well, Juice Scruggs is,
you could throw
guys. Cade Mays, the guy who's a terrible run blocker. You like the
terrible.
Cade Mays is not a terrible run blocker.
PFF has Cade Mays
42. Check it out. He's a 42 rating at run blocking. He's a great pass blocker. He's a great
his zone or his gap run blocking?
Because that's was his overall run blocking grade. His overall run blocking. Well, no. I mean, Chris is speaking facts. You're just dismissing it.
It doesn't matter. His position is set. We're paying him a lot of money to be our starting center. It does not matter.
Okay.
So it's left guard
there's
is
no
the
competition
position
at center with the guy that PFF. Everybody
is he better than Glasgow?
Oh, I mean, what is that even saying?
Then you've already improved.
What is that even saying? He's better than Glasgow? I mean,
he's the best center we've had since Ragnow retired. Period.
Okay.
Which is only 1 year, but
right. Okay.
Yes. I don't know. I mean, I get your point, guys. But look, we have fixed. We went from having an all-star at right guard and center in a bunch of scrubs at backup to having like a significantly better room. Look at it from that perspective, right? Overall, the offensive line is much improved over it was last year. Last year was top heavy with some very blatant big holes at center, left guard, and at depth.
I don't think last year
this
was
year
top
we
heavy.
are.
I'm sorry, it's not. Last year was not top heavy.
When I say top heavy, I'm saying Ratledge and Sewell and Decker, a healthy Decker, but he wasn't healthy. That's the point. Last year's line sucked. It was bad.
Our line was really bad last year. So.
We are significantly improved on this line, at least on paper. We have better players across the board. Now, do we have superstars? We don't know. We may not. But I mean, regardless, we're getting an offensive tackle.
I'd love for the competition,
17 or 50.
Dan, to make this offensive line better. Listen,
thank you.
And I,
58.3 run blocking.
I would love for this to make the whole offensive line better. Totally. It's putting a lot on our offensive line coach. It's putting a lot on Petzing. It's putting a lot on these guys to do that and make these guys better. And I would love for them to be. But, if we're looking at how they performed to this point, including Cade Mays, I don't have confidence that this offensive line has gotten better. I don't.
Well,
I think
putting him in a position to succeed will help too. And we did not. Our coaching staff last year, by virtue of play calling, right, and also the lack of competent complementary pieces at the tight end. Our line was just bad because pass blocking was bad at the middle because they didn't communicate.
Yep.
We had a lot of injuries, guys in and out. Every week we ran on a new offensive line there for like 6 or 7 weeks in a row. You kept swapping those interior guys out. But our running game until Campbell took over against, was it Baltimore? We just gashed them, right? But then we turned around and sucked next week against Philly or whoever it was, right? So, the coaching staff has to put these guys in a position to succeed. They can't be calling freaking 2nd and 9 and call a dive up the middle. That's just stupid. You're not accomplishing anything, right? So they need to give these guys a chance and take advantage of their strengths. And I think that there was a definite come to Jesus meeting this offseason over why our running game suffered and why our offensive line was not playing well. And I think they'll put these guys in a better position this year. But again, are these guys superstars? No. Outside of Penny Sewell, we don't know what any of these guys can do. We think we know what they can do, but let them go prove it on the field. Show us your best self. And if it's not good enough, then that's a problem. But make them go out and prove that they are an NFL caliber starter and they can play at an NFL caliber.
Yeah.
But there's a tackle coming. I mean, let's just be honest. There's another lineman coming.
Has to be a tackle coming in the draft. There has to be another edge that we feel great about. I mean, there's a lot of bodies in those positions, and I feel like going into the draft, that's one of the things that Holmes is doing is he likes to kind of go in the draft without like, okay, this is a need, but we've got guys to kind of mitigate that whole thing, and he's doing that at edge with the signings that we've seen the last with Wanham and Peyton and these other guys that are coming in, and on the offensive line as well. I just don't feel super confident about Borum and some of these other guys. Day one starter at right tackle with Sewell moving over to left tackle. I'd like to see. I'd like to see a better offensive line, to be honest, than we saw
you
last
said
year.
yourself, he's playing chess, right? And he has not locked himself into having to draft any position in the draft. He has given himself options, at least, with guys that can fill in and be starters. Whether they're top of the line, probably not. But we're not spending top of the line dollars either, so
can't.
But I agree. I mean, there is plenty of offensive linemen. Freeling's probably moved out of our range. He's probably top 15 now. Proctor, Lomu, Blake Miller from Clemson. I've heard a lot of him coming to us.
Yep.
Right.
Seeing that in the drafts. Yep.
You get to round 2, you might get into like Dunker area, but he's got some injury issues, and he's more of a right tackle. But yeah, I mean, somewhere along the way, there's plenty of depth. This offensive tackle is very deep in rounds 2, 3, 4.
Well, and this
5,
is the other thing, and we'll get into this too, guys, as we wrap this up. It's not just, hey, it's got to be the right pick, right? So like Caden Proctor, like this guy's a physical freak. But like
he's a right tackle.
There's there's questions, right? Is this guy the right fit for us? Yes, I think I'd love to keep Panay at right tackle and bring in a fantastic left tackle. Maybe that left tackle is not necessarily a pick 17. Who knows? There's a lot that's going to happen between now and the draft. And folks, we appreciate you joining us tonight on Lions Gray Mains, or today, or whenever you're listening to this on the replay. If you've gotten this far, congratulations. You've made it through our little hissy fits that we.
You must be a real Lions fan,
right? Exactly.
You must be a true Lions fan, and we appreciate you. So while you're still here, hit that subscribe button, the follow button, the bells, any of that crap they throw in front of you on these particular platforms, because we'd love to have you along for the ride in the future. And folks, we appreciate it. In the coming weeks, we're going to be doing shows more related to the draft. And Marcus Newsom, our newest follower and subscriber, we appreciate. Of course, we won't find a better defensive end than Hutch in the draft. There isn't one, but we can find the best left tackle or cornerback on our team at 17.
Not wrong.
That's absolutely so. Marcus, welcome to the family. We appreciate you. Hit that subscribe button, folks. And as always, we love to say at the end of the show, Go Lions. Almost got it.
Bust it outside left. Jameer down to the 10. Jameer to the 5. Jameer to the end zone. Touchdown, Detroit Lions.
And off Barry skirts to the left side, breaks a tackle, and he will take it in. Touchdown!
Touchdown, Detroit Lions! That's what I'm talking about! It is caught! Touchdown, Detroit Lions!